How about this to celebrate our spring championship?
I celebrated by getting a new Honda Civic Hybrid. With style, power, and fuel efficiency, it's next level awesome. Get in.
Why didn't I think of this? How do you return a billboard?
Hi, my name's Atlas. I play Death Knight for Liquid Guild. Some of the features of the Alienware Proline mouse that I've really enjoyed. It's extremely lightweight. It glides effortlessly across like a mouse pad. The clicks feel very responsive and give you feedback. I love how this mouse feels. WoW players inherently mash their keyboards like crazy, so it's good to have a reliable keyboard that is responsive and easy to have clicks on the keys. Can I keep it?
Hi, I'm Exile, and I play Rogue in Liquid Guild. Personally, my favorite feature about the Proline mouse is that it feels light as a feather, it's really smooth, and I have no questions on whether or not I'll be able to use it for very extended periods of time. The customizability of the Alienware keyboard is a great feature to have, as you're able to change the lighting whenever you want and even change between switches.
Hi, I am Bubba Dub. I am a analyst/officer in Liquid Guild. The main feature that I really like about the mouse is the side buttons. They give you direct feedback on whether you pressed it or not. The weight and the shape of this mouse are perfect for me. This keyboard is definitely something that I would use at home for general use and for gaming. The way that the keyboard feels to me, I get instantaneous feedback on what button I pressed and how I pressed it.
Hi, my name is Max and I'm the raid leader of Liquid Guild. Alienware Pro Mouse is actually great. It's wireless, it's super easy to deal with. It has great skates, so it actually will glide really well. You could use it all day and you don't get sore at all. So the Alienware Proline keyboard is actually great for WoW. If you want smaller desk space taken up by your keyboard, it can also connect to 3 different devices through Bluetooth. And just overall, it has a great feel. This might be the best keyboard I've ever used. What is this? Where's my secret lab?
This is your chair.
That's not my chair. It's in my contract, man. I only sit in secret lab chairs.
Look, I'm gonna have permanent back damage because of this.
What's going on with them? PA forgot his secret lab.
Chair. Look at my back. Look at the back of the chair.
Look at my
Max is gone full diva.
I use secret labs. This is some dog.
They didn't give me anything.
Ever since Max renewed his contract, he's been like weirdly obsessed with secret lab chairs.
Oh, sorry.
He does everything in them. Like everything.
There we go, right there.
Like I get it, they're great chairs, but it's just like a bit much. It's like a little too far.
I guess he had it put in his contract to always be sitting in a secret lab chair. I mean, who does that? When did that happen?
Good secret lab.
Look, it's not about the design or the comfort. It's the personalized ergonomics, right? Why else would it be in my contract? I want it wherever I'm at. I feel like people here just don't get it, you know?
For sure.
Like, it's like when you're used to sushi and then you go back to canned tuna. You just don't want that, right? No one wants that.
That's crazy.
I feel like we should be focusing more on prepping for the actual race than like what chairs we sit in. I mean, like, how comfortable can they really be? Oh. Okay, I kind of get it.
Let's move my 2 to a 3 and my 5 to a 7. I'm gonna take a quick dinner around then. Actually, you know what? Instead of the 3, maybe move that to a 1. That way I don't have to come into the office until way later, hopefully.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Look, it is what it is. I'm a nice guy, but secret lab, that's the only chair this butt sits in.
Oh, sorry.
There's either a secret lab there or I'm not going.
All right. That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you. Have a good night.
Ah, there's my secret lab.
Hello, everybody, and good morning. Welcome back. The Raiders are in. They've gotten their breakfast. They are ready to go soon on Mythic Princess Kaiveza. Shout out to Coinbase, our presenting partner, as well as Secret Lab, Monster Energy, Alienware, Writer.io, Wowhead, Warcraft Logs, and Dungeon Dojo. My name is Aya. You just saw me. You just saw Jack also. We've got Dratnos here with us this morning, though. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Yep. Thoughts on everything going on so far?
Exciting to get into Kaiveza. I think a boss that we could see some very quick progression on, as we have had, overnight strategy, maybe composition changes, and then a boss that really, once you've got that first phase, if you figure that out perfectly, you just do the same thing 3 times, boss dies.
Yeah, I was talking to some of the Raiders this morning. It sounds like it's just kind of a rinse and repeat, like repetition thing, more getting the muscle memory in, just because like the positioning required in that sort of like kaleidoscope thing. I don't know, what is it, a pentagram? Did we decide what it is? What kind of shape?
It's a pentagon of orbs that are being fired from the players when they have been assassinated by the different clones they have going on.
Yeah.
But certainly it's going to be more rinse and repeat in terms of the mechanics that are going to be happening. But for a lot of these raiders, they have to figure out some of the nasty combinations of where do they stand, where do they position, particularly those that are less mobile than others.
Yeah.
How do you position yourself so you can protect yourself while also aiming any of these projectiles away from your raid? And how are you also maximizing your damage? Because I'm sure when they had the choice between Brew Twister Ovanax and Princess Kaiveza, they looked at both health pools and said, okay, which could we kill first?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no question about why all of the guilds have decided to go to Brood Twister instead of Princess Kaiveza, but we are the first one to be proccing on it. We saw it last night. We had a couple of hours on it, and I think I just heard they're going to just like pull as quickly as they can, and I believe that was in your shift.
Yeah, the machine gun pulls at the end of the night. That I think there's some element of muscle memory they're looking to build up on dealing with some of the mechanics, which, like you said, figuring out how to get to where you need to be fast enough. They have it pretty figured out, like, oh, if you go to this specific position and then you get gripped, right, you're going to shoot your orbs, you're not going to hit anybody. But that strategy needs to work not just for the mages that can blink there. They need to have a strategy that will work so that if the Holy Priest gets targeted by something, they can get in position fast enough to, have that work out. And that is a little bit trickier. Yeah, they're using some Warlock gateways to set up some of that movement for the slower classes if they do get targeted. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is a boss where a lot of their wipes down the line, once they've got it more practiced, end up being when the less mobile classes are being targeted over and over again.
Right, and that's one thing that can kind of kill the momentum of a lot of their attempts. When they have the same people getting targeted at the same time over and over and over again, makes it even more challenging for them to make good progression. But as you can see on our boss web, Brew Twister Ovanax has finally fallen, bringing us to the next of the, gate bosses before we get into Silken Court. Probably my favorite thing thus far has been sort of the pacing, I guess you could say, of this raid. We're very used to a lot of the early bosses falling over really rapidly. I mean, even in Amir Drasil, the majority of the raid was done, and it was just the last 2, even last 3 bosses that were putting up a big fight. But I don't know about you all, but I love that the last 4 of the encounters are looking to be a massive challenge.
Yeah, the difficulty curve here maybe has some bones one could pick with the bull counts being 1, 1, 1, 1, 120. It's a little bit
difference.
It's not
a hike.
But it's worth noting that the ones on the first 4 bosses are atypical. Most guilds are going to wipe a few times, so that is just they've prepped these bosses and they're over-gearing them. The 120 on Ovanax, though, yeah, I mean, that boss is super duper hard, and then Kaiveza is harder, numerically at least. They are sitting at around item level 620, which
pretty good.
It seems high to us this week. But it's worth noting that this tier, there's some extra runway for guilds that are reaching these things later, with the myth track going all the way up to 639, for instance. So if you're farming for a few weeks, I think that you'll be able to be doing these bosses substantially ahead of Liquid's item level, which should help make them a little bit easier. I'm a little bit worried, though, still about the kinds of difficulty that we have on Ovanax and Kaiveza. These bosses do not look to me like 5th and 6th bosses. They look to me like last bosses or second to last bosses in terms of how much stuff is going on with them and how much everything just kills you or one-shots you.
Well, here's a look at our Honda boss progress. As we can see, 63%, our current best pull on Nexus Princess Kaiveza. First guild at 5 out of 8. I do expect Echo to be closely following that. They had a 9% pull last time I checked. I don't know if it's gotten any better.
3% now,
3%
yeah.
pull, so they should probably get it before the end of the day. I think it's only like, 7 p.m. over there, something like that, over in Sweden in Echo time. So we'll definitely keep tabs on all of the other guilds, of course, in our Coinbase leaderboard that you can see here with the top 10 guilds. As we can see, Liquid 5 out of 8, everyone closely following behind him. We've got some Chinese guilds in the mix as well, is what it's looking like. I don't know who that is, actually.
Yeah, well, the Chinese guilds have historically kind of like remade, disbanded, remade again, tier by tier. While there's been new names, there's a lot of the same players that are getting featured. And so there's a lot of churn that we've seemed to be seeing in the Chinese scene, but it's also a return to form for them since we're now having Warcraft back in the Chinese region as the NetEase and Blizzard deal has finally gone through after over a year?
Yeah,
13 months.
Two tiers that we didn't have Chinese guilds in the Race to World First playing on the mainland servers. Yeah, although we did have Skyline playing on the Taiwanese servers, right? They, I believe, had a disband, though, but like you said, Jack, sometimes you have these guilds where you disband, and then next year you see 13 of those 20 in the new guild together, and that may be what's going on here. I'm not sufficiently familiar with it.
Yeah, I wonder if we can get some more information on that later from the...
We'll send Tettles to go and figure it out.
We can do that.
True.
But either way, welcome back, Chinese guilds. Welcome back, Chinese players. We're excited to have you in the mix once again. That is our Coinbase leaderboard, the top 10. Currently, we'll keep tabs along the way. Something else we're keeping tabs on is our charity update. We are cruising along here. $5,000 is our next incentive. A commentator orchestra. We're super close to that. We got $2,500 yesterday, pumpkin carving contest, and I think we're going to do that. Casters make Hollowfall Star. I think we got to get Jed. I think we got. I miss Jed.
Oh,
we got to get Cams in here on that one. He's really excited about the crystal. I think he's mentioned it several times.
Okay, yeah. I doubt he'll be in for a little while. He's usually the kind of the night
guy.
owl.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can set aside some supplies for him and he can make it on his own.
Yeah. I don't know when the plan is to do that, so hopefully he'll be here for it.
I just heard the word today, so not sure exactly when that is. But teal.gg/RWF-donate for $30. You can have your transmog rated on stream, or you can have your pet featured on the broadcast as well. We won't rate your pet because they're all 10 out of 10. We don't need to do that, obviously. But transmog rating, make sure you're sending in your armory link. Have you guys had a chance to do any of those? Have they been solid?
The transmog ratings?
Yeah, the transmog.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's some really good ones.
I like the pet pictures as well. Those have been nice.
They're nice. They're nice.
A lot of birds, actually, which I think is really cool. Yeah, I think I've seen 3 birds so far in the ones that I've done.
Do you know what kind of birds?
The ones with the wings, the flappy wings.
The feathery ones.
We saw a pigeon, didn't we?
I wasn't on for that one, but I heard about that one.
That was a pigeon.
Yeah,
the pigeon.
Like a real one. But look at this. We are getting our first pull of the morning, already at 85% Dratnos.
Yeah, we are underway here, although we do start to see players dying already on this particular pull. But you can see a little bit of the pattern that they're creating here. It looks suspicious, right? You kind of see the portals, and it kind of looks like they're not in a nice, clean shape. But that shape actually definitely works because it's symmetrical.
Right. Keep in mind, with all the rifts, they're going to be dragging players towards each of them. And so if you're standing in between multiple different rifts, you're not really going to be moving anywhere.
Yeah, as long as they're all sort of equally spaced around you in terms of direction, it doesn't matter how far they are from you, they'll still be pulling you in that direction equally. So as long as you have like 3 pairs of ones that are 180 degrees from each other, which you can easily make by just having them moving along those lines on the floor, then that makes it so that the grip is livable. Even if they're all in that kind of, there's that square in the middle and then 2 far ones, which is the result of how they do the dashing. Because the other problem is you can't just have them be placed in markers and then, dash them a couple of yards outwards like you can on the lower difficulties, because you need to dash some of them through the boss each time, or else you're going to wipe to that masks mechanic. So that's part of why the shape looks like it does.
Yeah, you're even seeing some of the rifts farther out of the raid, and it seems to be pretty forgiving on that end, not getting too steep of a grip in that direction, as long as the rest of the rifts are going to be mostly symmetrical. And so the execution, you can kind of, like mentioned before, the machine gun pulls, because they know the strat that they need to get done, and then it's just a matter of making sure that they're able to implement it, find the strat that works, keep on executing until they get some low pulls.
And even if you're not a little bit not symmetrical, there's still a center of the
yeah,
that you could potentially find if you need to. Obviously, that's not ideal, but I do wonder if you can recover in that instance.
You can, yeah. There's one of the ones later where the last grip of the phase, they are often a little bit more kind of haphazardly spread around, but the first couple of grips, they want to make sure they have in those spots. The first two, they like having so that they can then make sure they're getting the dashes right through the boss as needed. Let's take a quick look at the composition, though, as we do have some adjustments coming in here.
3 mages.
Yeah, we've got the third wizard in.
All arcane?
I suspect all arcane for this fight, yeah. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I mean, I don't think you'd ever really play Frost on an encounter like this. Fire has been a spec that has not seen much play this tier, although the mage in my guild is on a cook for Fire on this fight, so we'll see if that ends up being ever something that looks at all good here. Yeah, I don't think anybody else is. I don't think anybody else is on that particular cook, but single targets. One of the nice things about playing Fire on a fight like this is the last Starless Night phase, when the boss is in that sub 35% range. You'd be able to be doing full damage while moving in a way that Arcane can't, and there's a lot of movement in that last intermission.
True.
So
I wonder if they go 2 Arcane, 1 Fire for that final
I think
push?
they're probably just going to keep playing the Arcane mages, but
the final push is brutal. I mean, do you want to talk about that? You've got that 3 stack from the Mask mechanic, a 30% increase in damage, along with like just every single mechanic that you see is like, there's more of them.
Yeah,
basically.
the intermissions as well on Mythic, they look super sketchy. On Heroic, that third intermission does 3 pizza slices instead of 2. On Mythic, I suspect that the similar thing or something more intense will happen on the last intermission.
Oh yeah, because we don't fully even really
we haven't even gotten to it.
Everything about it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so here come the first dashes. So what they're doing here is 2 of the dashes go through the boss, and the other 2 the other 3 take the smallest possible step towards the boss along their line. That's what creates for them this box where now 3 of them are close to the middle, the boss makes the 4th, and that makes this sort of square, and then the 2 that dash through the boss are far away. But Jack, like you said, even though they're far away, the grip is more based on the direction they are relative to you rather than how close they are to you.
Yes. You're even seeing them cheat a little bit ahead to make sure they had a bit of breathing room. It takes some time to sort of like build the trust that it's going to drag you a certain specific amount. And so that's a huge reason for all of these chain pulls, and making sure you understand how much of the pulls are coming in. You can see everybody running out as they're firing off those 5 projectiles. Sometimes they have to get in really quickly because the projectiles are going off during the rift suck, and then other times they have a bit of time to breathe before they have to go back into the group before the rifts are coming around. You can always quickly see the Raiders are already pre-spreading in advance for the first of the intermission phases.
Yeah, you want to be playing sort of between 2 of these slices so you can just sidestep, and that's exactly what Fired Up is doing here, right? He knows he has to just kind of step between these 2 sides. Not too much danger, though, as long as you're doing that.
Yeah, and you can see that already having some of the healers going down. This is a really challenging phase because the more players you're having cooped up in melee, the more of what we fondly call the blaze lines, these line debuffs that you can splash onto other players if you're not watching out for them. They get more and more clogged up. Part of the challenge with this healer composition, though, is proximity matters a lot. And the double Flame Shaper Evokers really like having their party stacked for both the Dream Breath and Power, healing over time effect, and for their Engulf ability, which is igniting their Dream Breaths and causing a proximity detonation. So it's going to be a big challenge from the healer POV to make sure they're able to put sufficient output onto all of those mages or any other ranged players they have on their team.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I mean, you're Holy Priest also, right? You want everybody nice and close together for that Sanctify.
True.
Your Paladin, want to be nice and close to people for Mastery Lightbringer. All these different abilities where that's the challenge, and then you have the slicey lines, meaning, hey, we don't want that many melee or else everybody's going to be slicing each other up.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they're going to be running double Beacon on this one for the Holy Paladin side, just to make it a little bit easier for that Mastery, since they revamped how Mastery works in 10.2.5, where it's based off your position or the beacon position.
Yeah.
And so if you have static beacons instead of running Beacon of Virtue, then it gives you a couple of extra advantages, and it also gives you better priority healing onto some of those ranged allies who may not be too tightly stacked up.
Definitely, it is. I kind of suspect that what you're going to do on this fight is you just play more ranged so that you don't have It's harder to heal them in that case, right?
Yeah.
Because they're less stacked. But I think you need to be less stacked so that you don't cleave each other with those lines and you can actually spread more around the room safely. And then you make the healers figure it out.
Do you think our composition is still going to have some changes?
I wouldn't be surprised if they change a few more things. Like the 3 Arms Warriors are really good. They're doing a lot of single target damage. But I wouldn't be surprised if we consider options like, I don't know if we have a 3rd BM Hunter geared. I think those look really, really phenomenal on this fight. I think the Og Evokers as well could potentially come back in. They're something that we saw on Brood Twister eventually being played. And I think single target damage-wise, they're a lot less exciting than they are when they're buffing, say, Frost DKs in an AoE situation. But they're also something where you'd be adding defensive value a little bit less true than in Emirsil. In Emirsil, they had a lot more, defensive oomph to them with the stronger Black Attunement that's since been nerfed quite a bit. But I still think you could play some of those. Then you've got some more like rescues and stuff, rescue shields going out, Zephyrs during that intermission.
Yeah, Zephyr's going to be quite good as well in this raid because usually you kind of think about it as a defensive since it's giving damage reduction from AoE attacks to you and your 4 closest allies, which is pretty difficult to coordinate sometimes on encounters where everybody's going to be stacked. But when the plan is that you're going to have all these ranged players more or less in around the same area, you're able to sort of game who is receiving that additional damage reduction and sort of having greater control than you would otherwise have on some other encounters like Rashanan or on Brood Twister, where most of the party is stacked.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting conundrum for sure, so... Excited to see exactly what more they'll be doing with this. As we have.
What is this?
That is Bart's add-on.
Yeah, this add-on is really cool.
Fancy.
It lets them set up reminders while looking at the timers of various boss mechanics, right? So on this fight, you can see when all of these different damage events and things are, and then you can give yourself a reminder to either cast an ability or move somewhere at different times. So Boomy right now giving himself some reminders based on like, hey, go to this position in the room at this time. Potentially a very useful thing to have. He is on the Arms Warrior here, having played Fury before on a few of the other bosses.
He says he wants to sell it after, make his millions.
Yeah,
yeah, have a Patreon for it.
There you go.
Yeah, Bart's reminders. Except that's not what he called it. He called it raid reminders or something super boring.
We need like a pun to go with it.
Bart's,
We'll leave it up to Twitch chat. They'll have a good idea.
I'm surprised Dratnos doesn't have any. I feel like
no, I'm out of ideas. Too early in the morning for me to have ideas.
I was about to say, it's your first morning shift.
It's a little bit more of your monster energy.
I have got my monster energy. That is helping an awful lot, let me tell you.
Well, speaking of ideas, how did your raid go last night? I heard you cackling next to me.
Yeah, so we killed Heroic Rashanan. We just went and killed that in one pull at the start of our night, and then
nice.
We did normal splits because
we
weren't planning on doing them this week, but we need more gear because
right.
Brood Twister is not the most reasonable boss to ever be looking down. So we did that a little bit. Then we pulled Brood Twister for 30 minutes or so, and that went about as well as expected.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what we did as well.
Very nice.
I think we gave it an hour to figure out the weak auras, figure out additional positioning.
Set up the weak auras, set up the. I mean, we got our map, we got our plan, but we got a lot of progression to do, and it's tough because we only wield a single Frost DK right now, so that's something that we're maybe going to try and panic gear some extra.
Your Fire Mage doesn't want to switch?
Our Mage playing Arcane on that fight.
I see.
Yeah, that one's definitely, I think, an Arcane fight, because whenever you have those spiders under the boss, the Arcane Barrage is hitting like 3 or 4 targets is so good. They're a little bit less good for Parasite damage than the big, AoE cleave classes like those Fury Warriors and those Frost DKs, but Arcane's still very good on that fight, I think. I mean, Arcane is just save every boss. If you're playing Mage, you can only learn one spec this tier, it's definitely Arcane. But there are some arguments that can be made for Frost and maybe even Fire on some of the fights, too.
I think it's okay to let a spec that gets underrepresented historically have their moment in the sun.
Arcane?
Yeah.
Yeah, Arcane.
I mean, it's been a while.
We saw it on Razageth tier, but it was a very different version of Arcane than we have now. That was
true.
That was a lot less fun as well. If you played
like
Arcane on Razageth, it was like that was not an enjoyable Mage experience compared to now. Since then they've pruned Mana Gem, which is a huge dub, and they also pruned the Nether Tempest and Radiant Spark stuff. So the Arcane rotation right now is a lot more, I would say, intuitive and approachable than it used to be. So it's a very, very fun spec.
It's good to see that it's still performing so well, especially in beta where it was like the most hyped up DPS spec.
and they nerfed it like 7 times, and it's still just great. Yeah, I'm a little sad though. Spellslinger is Spellslinger was really fun when it was first added to beta for Arcane, and they basically removed all of the stuff it did. Yeah. And now it's just like it's kind of there, and also the damage isn't great. Sun Fury is still cool, but I'm a little sad. Like Spellslinger, you used to be getting a bunch of free orbs and stuff, and now you basically don't get anything from it. So.
I'm hoping that like the 1105. The anniversary event, which we already have some incoming talent reworks.
Yeah.
I hope that's where we get a couple of adjustments to some of the hero talents. I think a few of them are needing them, especially when we have like 90% representation for some of the hero talents. Obviously for World First, there's going to be a best for some profiles, but some of them are pretty imbalanced. Others are in better shape.
Some are definitely, like there are a lot of classes where it's pretty good, and then there are some like Arcane Mage, for instance, you know, Sun Fury is just a clear choice over Spellslinger. I think also one of the things that's really cool in that patch is some are just getting reworked, right? Like Dark Ranger is getting completely overhauled and is becoming a lot cooler, so I'm also encouraged by that. But we are underway with another poll here.
Yes, poll number 30, as you can see. They're placing the rifts. Once again, if you just tuned in, these rifts, just like on heroic difficulty, are going to be dragging players in. At the very beginning of the encounter, you're going to see 5 of the rifts based off the player location for the assassinates, and then the last of those rifts is going to be determined by where the tank is currently standing. As you're watching, Boomy adjusts his positioning so that all of those assassin clones are going to be traveling as close as they possibly can. They're traveling as minimally as they possibly can, so that the next round of rifts spawning on those clone locations is going to be as consistent and not have as much drag.
Yeah, this can't be what this was supposed to look like here. That we see 5 rifts in the shape, but we know there are 6 total that happen there. So the 6th one was out of frame behind us, and that was unfortunately creating a little bit more of a grip than you want in that direction. That's going to lead to another wipe here.
Yeah, and this is going to be the biggest thing they need to figure out every single pull, because part of the challenge is you're not getting the exact same players targeted by rifts or clones every single pull. So everybody has to not only know the game plan, but also experience it themselves, because it could be very quick, sort of like bang, bang, in terms of how these mechanics are happening. Some of the less mobile classes have to plan out their positioning in advance, and they don't have the advantage of, say, Boomy on the Warrior to leap out to that location, drop off that rift or the clone, and then be able to get back in to start DPSing.
So some other things to note about their composition as compared to before. Hardy, it looks like, is in once more, so that's the 2nd enhancement shaman for them, which is a spec that does quite a lot of single target damage. You can see, obviously, you know, this pull didn't last particularly long, but near the top there, right next to Impact on the other enhancement shaman on the meters. And also, Exile is, interestingly enough, playing Assassination Rogue here. I think a lot of people were expecting to not see Assassination much at all this tier, but I've always been a believer in Assassination Mythic Progression. I think that the spec works out so nicely when you are in Mythic Progression, because Assassination, you can just, if you have to get targeted to run out, for, you know, to go place one of these ads, you're losing 5 seconds of uptime on the boss. Outlaw is in tremendous pain whenever that happens. Subtlety, even if that happens during one of the, you know, half of the time where they're bursting, they're really sad. Assassination a lot less affected by that, so.
That's mainly because of the bleeds being
part of so much of their damage is dot-based, and they're regenning energy anyways. Like, obviously, they'd like to be hitting the boss, but they tend to be minimally affected by losing some uptime like that. You're able to plan out all your CDs very much to be lining up with times where you are going to have full uptime. So it's a spec I'm not super, although, Exile's still playing it. I wouldn't be surprised if he experiments with some Outlaw in this fight too, but I'm a believer in the assassination on an encounter like this. Looks like we've had another dash go the wrong way there. Whichever person got targeted by that rift just behind the bottom of the frame here dashed it out rather than in on the last set when they were supposed to dash it inwards, but because it was still in the right relative direction, it didn't lead to people getting gripped anywhere they shouldn't.
Yeah, and you could even see the pings that were going out to mark that this is the rift that needs to get dragged, or the clone that needs to get dragged through the boss later on with the Mythic mechanic. And now we have a really nasty combo of rifts we've been watching for. Yes, some of the players getting dragged in a little too much of that.
That shape is not good. You want a nice hexagon. You do not want a pentagon with a central rift in the middle of all of it. That will lead to People getting gripped into that one.
And look at the ones who are surviving. We have mages, we have hunters, and just one tank. Having enough mobility to get out of that. If you're not as fortunate, then you kind of get left in the dust.
All right, all good. Probably some good teachable moments from that particular pull.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it, too, is that what we're seeing right now is also going to be featured later on in the encounter. The pulls that we're doing or the situations that people are getting into, okay, are you trying to push your clones out a little bit further? Are you trying to make sure they're stacked in with the group? All are going to be featured really heavily throughout the encounter. So in a lot of cases, these mechanics are going to be repeating themselves over and over again, and it's getting everybody used to that positioning. We've seen Bart's Weakor on a number of different players being customized pull by pull so that they're able to set up all those timers and reminders for themselves that they can get back to keep on practicing and having some more productive attempts.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really good to remember as well is that Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 of this fight are all functionally identical to each other. You're going to do the exact same movement with these dashes. The only thing that's going to be different is the boss is going to get more of those Death Cloak stacks as you're dashing more masks through it. But the strategy they have is completely workable with any number of masks. It works with the exact same dash positioning. The only thing that you have to make sure is that you dash the right two through the boss to start with. But as long as you do that, it works the whole way through the fight. So as soon as they get this phase down and they get the intermission down, that's it. That's the fight. It's over. You know, that now it's just a question of do we have the damage and can we execute this cleanly, 3 times in a row reliably. But I suspect that once they start getting close to executing this, we're going to see some very rapid acceleration to them being able to do it every single time.
Yeah, and that goes back to the experimentation you were talking about with Rogue of saying, okay, when's a good time to see if, I don't know, Subtlety or Outlaw is going to be a good option? Well, it's going to be once we get these mechanics down. We've seen so many times in the Race to World First where they complete all the mechanics, they resolve all the mechanics, and they get to the end of the boss fight and there's 15% remaining.
Right.
20% remaining. All of this extra HP. Where are they going to find it? I'm like, okay, well, they're not even worrying about that at that point.
Exactly. That's something that will be very, very much, that's not the problem of right now, right? That's a future Liquid problem.
That's a problem for Team Liquid at dinner time or Team Liquid at lunchtime.
I wouldn't even be surprised if it's a problem before lunchtime, but it's definitely not a problem right now. Hopefully, so the thing is, like, they are pretty close here to understanding and getting this phase solved. It's not like they have strategic issues, I don't think, with this. I feel like the geometry all works. It's just a question of getting the reps in, but these players don't need many reps to get this sort of strategy learned, right? Like this can very quickly go to 20 players who all have a 99% chance, higher than a 99% chance of standing in the right spot every time they're targeted by one of these things. And once that's true, we're going to start seeing some very quick progression here.
Yes, as you can see, the first intermission has been when we've been having a couple of people crumble, but I do like the Rift positioning onto that one. I think he did a fantastic job. That was, for the past 3 or 4 pulls, been having some rough Rift positionings. And now it seemed like they had gotten it on hand, just had a little bit too much of a drag in one area. And then, of course, they have to set up their healing to deal with all of the intermission damage as well. Looks like they did have rewinds kind of pooled up for that area. Since the intermission phase is going to last around 24 seconds, they could probably be chaining together rewinds. Maybe using some spatial paradox, which allows your healer to cast on the move, and using that for the Holy Priest, potentially allowing them to cast Divine Hymn while moving and dodging. They have a few different resources on hand to be very potent in dealing with that intermission healing when all the players are spread.
I wonder if you need the time spirals on this fight or if you can take the spatials. Yeah, because one thing that changed. One thing that changed the war with it, we have 3 now. We have 1 Dev and 2 Prez. And Time Spiral and Spatial Paradox are now a choice node with each other and both on a 3-minute CD. So if you wanted, say, a spatial for each intermission, you would need 2 Evokers to talent it and then both, target the Holy Priest. One would do 1 and 3 and the other would do 2 on the intermissions. It could work out, but that would be, you'd be expending a lot of that Time Spiral resource, and Time Spiral is very good for a lot of specs here. Not great for the Warlocks or the Priests, which are maybe some of the people that need more of the help.
Yeah.
But almost everybody else is getting a really potent movement effect here.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Do you remember how long it is between each of the intermission phases?
I think it's less than 3 minutes. Yeah, I think it's something.
So that was going to be the next part.
Something in that 2-ish minute range is the amount of time you'd have to recover CDs between them. Yeah, here's a look at that intermission once more from the replay.
Yeah, you can see Symbol going up. It's been nerfed since after Avarice. So it was
glory
going
days.
into Amir Drasil, and it's only giving you 30 seconds off of your defensive ability, a little bit of mana regen on hand. You see them using that well in advance, entering into that first intermission, because even when it is nerfed, it's still quite a potent cooldown, since many players have a minute, minute and a half defensives, so taking off half of the cooldown or a third of the cooldown's duration can make all the difference in the world when the intermission phases last such a long time of everyone taking consistent damage. And, of course, those blaze lines hitting all the other players.
Look at how pretty they did that.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Nice up-down view, too. Thank you, Impec.
Yeah, I think this camera angle makes a lot of sense here. Ooh, we've had an extra person being hit by that dash there. Very bad if anybody extra gets hit by the dash, because they get a massive dot, and then if they die like they did there, you die in the middle of the raid. Now you're shooting out those orbs in the middle of the raid, and that's led to 4 total deaths across this pull.
There's no visual indication of where the center of the orbs is, or the portals is, right? You just have to kind of guess.
Yeah, you have to just...
Based on feel and look.
Right, and that's part of the reason why having a consistent shape is so important, because then you know it's predictable, right? And you kind of learn, like, okay, this is exactly how I will be getting gripped with this shape, where I'll be getting gripped too. One of the things they rely on is that when people are getting gripped as they're about to shoot out orbs, like on that very first grip of the fight, they're actually getting gripped between the gap of 2 rifts so they can get back to the group. And it's a very sketchy looking, but it works out. Yeah,
that's crazy.
We'll look for it again on the next one, because
I've been missing that.
It looks scary, but it's very practiced at this point.
Okay.
And it's something where it's actually really safe.
Do we feel like just because of the mechanical nature of this, it's gonna be difficult to swap out people in a composition just because of the muscle memory that's required?
It probably depends on what you're bringing in as well. Like if you're bringing in something like a priest, they're gonna have a lot of learning to do of how to get to places in time. I think like if you wanted to bring in another mage, they've got blinks and stuff. They've probably been watching enough to have a pretty good idea, and then have the mobility to make up for that reaction time that it'd take a while to build up. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if or what they would want to bring in at this point either. Maybe a little bit more, say, range to get a little bit more help against the intermission being all stacked up near the boss.
Also, shout out to Enhancement Shaman.
Yeah.
Impec is cruising right now. This is a good spec for this fight. I guess it really...
Kind of a good spec for every fight.
Yeah, you're the Enhancement Shaman and the Arcane. I love it.
Yeah, this tier, I would say
historically.
There's a lot of specs with some really powerful niches, right? Like you've got the Fury Warriors, the DKs and stuff. And then you've also just got Enhancement and Arcane doing huge damage everywhere. Okay, so there looked like Shaq going down and then dropping his dot earlier than intended. And that was why we saw those orbs. You get this dot whenever you get charged through or whenever you drop one of the portals. And that is what... Then when that dot expires, you shoot out those 6 orbs from you, and that is, if you die, the orbs shoot out early. Absolute catastrophe.
Yeah, once people kind of start wiping it up, it's a lot of blue, a lot of bad blue just kind of exploding from everybody.
It is indeed. But yeah, Impact, like you said, I mean, he's been big on Enhancement Shaman when he's been brought in tiers where Enhancement hasn't been like
really
super meta stuff. He's been huge damage on that thing in previous tiers too, but now it's a tier where it's also an Enhancement tier. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Impact is one of the people that's just always in.
He's having a good
for the remainder of this tier. Problem with that is that there's actually, you can play the other Shaman specs and they're also great, so there's never a fight where they really don't want Enhancement, but I can't imagine that fight existing this tier. That spec is so good.
Swapping to Ellie?
Yeah, Ellie's also been good. I mean, they played Ellie as well this tier. Resto Shaman also looks good.
Yeah.
Although a little bit outshone, I would say, by the Prez Evoker specifically, that Resto Shaman, so
yeah,
a bit harder.
There's been a number of times where there's encounters that can be pretty good for the Resto Shaman, and buffed up Spirit Link Totem thanks to the Spouting Spirits talent getting added. But there's a lot of times where just raw output wins. And that's what we've been seeing on so many encounters, even Brew Twister, which because of Preservation Evoker being stacked, enabled the 3 heal that they wanted to pull off. Sometimes more output is just going to win over some of the specific utilities.
I find it so funny that you went to blow your nose, and then as soon as Dratnos started talking about healers, it's like, I know I'm gonna call you out, but it was funny.
I know.
You're like, oh, they're talking about healers, I better come back.
That's so tough because earlier when you got up, Jack was totally the audience didn't hear at all about it.
Thank you.
You came back and it was smooth and
listen.
Jack gets up and immediately gets reported and out into the audience.
The comedic timing was great. I'm so sorry.
It's tough. That's
listen, I blew my nose too. Is there something in the air today? Is it raining outside?
I don't think that happens that often here.
No, but I don't know. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling my allergies this morning. There's a cat in the building. Well, if you're just now tuning in, we're on poll number 35. Why did you make that noise?
Well, it's like that was like that makes sense.
Yes, okay. I don't know. Well, you started chuckling and then I got self-conscious.
Adreno's got my back through all of this today.
That's right.
Right, you're right. I'm sorry. It's 2 casters against me. That's great. Well, we're on poll 35 now soon. Looks like we're just kind of discussing some things before we head into the next one. 63% was our best poll last night. We haven't seen any prog yet, but there's still quite a lot to figure out. Kind of warming up a little bit as well.
Are you? Yeah, I know you said you're cold.
I'm freezing.
I'm warming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've moved to a secret lab chair to move like 10 feet away from where you were sitting before, which there's like a local cold polar vortex in that chair. You think?
I moved to see better, but I am less cold sitting here, so this might be my strat.
I think that might.
Here.
Did you see the Secret Lab commercial with Max, where he said,
"Yeah,
my keister only sits in a Secret Lab chair"?
He used the word keister.
Yeah, didn't? Oh, I guess you just didn't watch it then. You got to watch it if you want to see it.
Jack, I was in it.
Well, I guess you didn't watch it then because you didn't hear him say
Not that
keister.
scene. Not that. I did not.
See,
no.
there you go. I thought you were just.
Is that a Yiddish word?
I have no idea.
It's
a fun word.
Keister. It's a good one.
Just a fun word.
Yeah. It is a fun word.
Yeah. We like to have fun here. So are the Raiders, too.
Absolutely.
I think there's I don't know how to describe it. It's just this like sort of tangible, positive aura, I guess you could say, in the air.
Yes.
After they got Rashanan down, they were just laughing and joking around the entire encounter. Literally while they one-shot the boss, joking around. They got serious, obviously, as they had to for Brood Twister, but it seems like everyone's just in positive spirits throughout this race. And I also love how they've been structuring like breaks and how they've been structuring their time to rest, work on Mythic Plus. I'm sure, as we've been mentioning, that they might make some compositional differences. They have players in the hyperbolic Mythic Plus chamber getting some more gear on specs that could be utilized or could be improved for some of the damage profiles we have coming up. It's just a very noticeable, fun vibe going on today.
Yeah. Waking up as well with Echo still having not downed Brood Twister has to be great for morale too, right? Like you know, there's some danger you think as you're going to bed that you're going to wake up and Echo may have taken the lead in the race, right?
That's the worst part about this.
Hasn't happened, which is you know, a great sign for Liquid's chances this tier.
Especially when Liquid notably had gotten so many pulls,
right?
Resolved all the mechanics. We're like 0.15% short, something like that.
There were a few very heartbreakingly low pulls for a couple of hours there, yeah. So you know, you kind of start if you end up then waking up behind, you sort of start thinking back about those pulls, right? And you're like, man, if we just killed that thing, we could have had 2 extra hours. You know, we could still be in the lead, right? And like. That gap is closing, but instead now the gap is staying equal, perhaps even widening, depending on whether Echo are able to get that pull, say, before they go to bed. I guess still, they've got quite a bit left in their day, but it is definitely great news for Liquid here that they kind of get to be uncontested on Kaiveza for a while, get to just work on this boss and know that they are building that advantage.
It is. It's definitely a good vibe that they have going on. There's been so many times where one team pulls ahead of the next and everyone's going to be talking about it. You get all of this news. There's no real way to insulate yourself from what the other team has going on or stop that, like, all the flood of information of like, oh, got to check what's going on with them.
Yeah, especially...
They tried, you know, they try to be like, okay, no Twitter, no, like, looking over at other stuff. Don't worry about it. Just focus on what you're doing.
It's been attempted to, like, ban that in the past even, but that...
They have, yeah.
It's tough to do. It's tough to insulate yourself, and that can sometimes lead to, you know, even more. The not knowing can be worse. So
right.
It does feel very relaxed.
It does.
Not relaxed, but like
the vibes are good.
The vibes are really good.
Yeah.
They've been great, and I've heard Max say a few times this is the most fun I'm ever gonna have during a tier.
Here we go. Poll underway. So you were asking about the part where you're getting gripped between two of the portals.
Show me, Rachel.
This is the 5 people that are targeted by these assassination circles that actually drop the clones will then 10 seconds later be shooting out those orbs.
Yep.
So we can see these 5 people. Maybe we could even hot swap to one of their POVs, although I don't have production to have one of those ready to pull up there of one of the people dropping. And then they're going to all, you can see them sort of running out here. And
yeah, with fired up POV
exactly,
right now.
yeah. And now all of them are going to be getting, look at this, they're gripped in through there between that space between the 2 of them, such that when that debuff on them expires, it's not aimed at the raid and they're far enough out, but then they're still safely getting gripped into that middle stack, which does require that positioning to be pretty precise on where those initial drops are, but they've got that pretty well figured out.
They have some excellent positioning coming in for the next round of rifts. That's one area where it's been a little hit or miss. You can see the close ones are really rough, but they got 2 of the enhanced or the masked empowered clones very far away. And as you can see, not too much of a drag. King Flag does go down, but they'll be able to get him back up very rapidly as they have the next round of the red clones that they're going to be blasting through the boss. There they are, and they're very far outside of the raid.
Yeah, so another 2 stacks of Deathcloak on the boss there. They get the next 2 masks through. Another few deaths there. Janako and Mavi both down. We get our next rifts, and the positioning on these is good again as well. You can see they've all stayed in the same relative line with each other, which means that you're not going to be getting gripped too nastily if you're in the very middle of the room. And now we're going to be entering that intermission. Starless Night, 18 players alive, not bad. And Boomy, so this is where he set up one of his reminders, is they are assigning these positions in the intermission such that they have people on the line between these different slices, and they're dividing up the room so that you don't have too many people in the same spot. Now, obviously, sometimes that plan doesn't survive contact with the actual dodges that you're given, but you can see Boomy is trying to play on that line that is right of Star and Orange. That's why he has a reminder that says right of Star and Orange.
Hey, love to be able to see it.
Yeah.
As mentioned, they had the great plan in place, and now they just have to execute on it. It's one of the most consistent intermissions, and one of the healthiest intermissions that we've seen thus far.
You're next.
Yeah, this is, oh.
I was just going to say it might be Prague right now. I mean,
that's right.
63%.
It's definitely close, yeah. I think they're probably going to end up getting killed before we get down to that 63% mark. But there was definitely some progression in terms of also just how well they did that first phase. And getting to the intermission with 18 people alive, pretty good. Things did all fall apart there. When we switched to Impact's POV as well, he was laughing a little bit, so maybe something funny happened during that intermission. But yeah, a good pull for Scherzies.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah, for Scherzies.
Couldn't see if Johnny had been running double beacon. I'm pretty certain that he was. Let me double check. Do we have the double beacons? I believe we're going to see it right as everybody gets rezzed up.
Yeah, we can see where those beacons go, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I would imagine there's one that's going to be onto the Hunters, although they've gotten a lot tankier lately. I see the cooldown. I see that he does have single beacons.
Thrilling.
Parsing. I know. I was waiting for that.
The excitement starts even before the pull. Where is that beacon going to go? Does it stay on between deaths? Or do you have to reapply it every single wipe?
Which
I think you have to reapply it every time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, some pings being delivered there.
I've been running Virtue so much lately, so.
Is this a fight where you might do that, do you think? Or is this
I would think that you would be running with the double beacon setup. Virtue is good for a lot of the AoE healing, and it's going to help particularly when you have players spread out, and you'd probably be casting it on a lot of like the range players.
So that you get that, you kind of have mastery coverage blanketing the whole room?
Yes.
I see.
There's the beacons.
Okay, beacon going on Malarkus and Yips, it looks like. So
yes.
They are indeed rocking the double beacon today. And
yeah, that makes
one
a lot
on a tank
sense.
and one on Malarkus, and then Scott is going to have to figure it out for himself.
He can heal himself.
On that bear.
Bears have tremendous amounts of sustain, and Brew, while its sustain is quite good, their steady damage intake is fantastic for Beacon. Pretty much makes it so that their external healing required is going to be a lot lower. And so the Holy Priest single target build that they have going on with the Lightweaver talent may not have to focus onto the Brewmaster as much and can be more focused onto a lot of like the range players. I know from my progression on Rashananon, there was a number of moments you needed to like spam the tanks a lot, when you might want to be precasting on some of the players dropping off on some of the webs. You're kind of split between two different priorities. And so in this encounter, you're going to be looking for a lot of that single target healing from the Holy Priest to be landing on a lot of the range players, while the beacon can be blasting tons of healing into the Brewmaster, into the Hunter, while they're directly healing, let's say, more of like the melee players.
Makes sense. Yeah, the Drinester here definitely wanting to make sure that he doesn't get benched again like he was on Open X too.
Oh,
So
man.
it's, gotta keep those healing as high as possible. Taking a look at what ended up killing Riku there. That Eclipse damage, I believe, is one of the slices even. This is an interesting fight as well because there's an extra mechanic that doesn't get talked about much here, which is if you ever drop below 10% health, the boss will assassinate you. It will just murder you. So
called Reaper.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you've ever played League of Legends, it's like the Elder Dragon debuff where you just get below 10% health and then boom, the big damage thing comes and gets you. So that is something that they have to watch out for. It makes the health bars a little bit sketchier than you'd otherwise think.
All right, sounds like they're discussing some more strategy before they head into this next bowl. So for that, we're going to head to a Monster Energy. Listen it.
Nothing personal, just
okay, can everyone just go to their spot? Everyone go to your spot. This is correct, except Beanbaker's in the wrong spot, I think.
No, me and Smack are on each other here, right? That's wrong.
So
Yeah,
only,
that's wrong. Yeah.
so I'll
Oh,
looking at the picture. Get away and reset the boss again.
Wait, Riku, is that where you always are? The opposite
Yeah, I'm the one.
on red.
Pull it out.
No, I'm the head of red, yeah.
Riku should be opposite of you, yeah. Were you right here last
So it's look, we have
I was left of orange.
Guys, just pull it up on. Actually, I'll change the picture. So where's I'll change the picture with the X and square relative. We're gonna have to reset it one more time probably, but I want to make sure you guys can at least look at it on your second monitor and like just double check. It is in the channel.
Looks like everyone in their spot.
Is everyone right?
Looks like it.
My secret dies with you.
I'm just double checking. Hardy and Boomy. No, Boomy's not on Hardy.
Yeah, I'm there. I just walked away for the mouse.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Everyone knows where they're at. Good. W shit. Dude, Shaq, did you just message me and delete it?
Yeah, I
Do it again.
I didn't want to talk anymore.
Okay.
You're good.
Because I got a notification and then I just saw you talking about not wanting to do the second kick on blue yesterday, and I thought you just sent that now. All good.
Oh no, that is old. That
I
is
was like, bro,
fucking years ago.
There is zero chance that there are any kicks in this fight.
That was like yesterday
That we
morning,
know
I
of.
think.
Last phase, you get to kick the mask, too.
Marked for death.
Red Ruby or you hate everyone. Do you even need to personal the first ones?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Okay.
It's like a 9-second dot or something.
Okay.
I strike from
Markers go through, everyone else does not.
W.
Why are we turning it around, KSP? What the fuck, man?
shredded.
We haven't done that in like
You cannot
so many
escape
pulls.
my blade.
Lines. Prescott. These are gonna be really fucking strange.
Should be the same suck. You just have to make sure you get one through. And then the
Yeah.
guy over here is suffering.
All right, close are going through except for KSP. KSP's mistake.
Well, this is supposed to be too late now.
Well, now it's a turbo suck. Yeah.
Yeah, then
We didn't. We're gonna die to the mask,
Yeah.
but practice lines.
Quick and painless.
How did you die? Fired up.
I don't know. There's the daggers, but
if that was a dagger, then I think there might be an animation wrong
Well,
with the dagger.
the daggers shoot further than they are.
Daggers are
I
way
think
further than
they
the
go
other.
like,
it was this
It has travel time,
I
right?
think they're also a bit wider than the line.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
the
they
dagger
go
visual
further, and I
is
think
The
they're
visual's
wider.
bad if you watch my clip from yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you see, like, they actually
yesterday.
go like 20 yards further.
Yeah, if you're at the end of the line, you just assume it goes further than it
Yeah,
was.
just don't ever be in the line, even though it's not there.
which is good.
Yeah, the only radius associated with them is 150 yards, so they might just go that far, even though the graphic stops.
All right, KSP, do you know what you did wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
If
So just to be clear, by the way, I think this is true. Is it true that in our strat, under no circumstances do we turn our clones around?
Yeah.
It never happens. You never
Yeah.
turn them around. Okay.
I mean, you could turn around, that one's bad, be a long fucking run. There's no way anyone's making it to the fucking inside the wall, man.
Turning it around, I think is
It's
like
over
a guaranteed wipe if you do that. Yeah.
The downside of turning it around is if those daggers actually go 150 yards, then you might not actually ever see the line.
Yeah, well, there's another problem too, in that if you don't turn around the oh my god, I lost the slide where I was doing all this shit on, I'll remake it, but like if you do this is what happened in that pull. Oh, timer, fuck it. Yep, I agree with you.
Let's just pull, guys.
Nope, yep, you're right. Don't fucking turn them around. I don't have to explain why, just don't do it.
Marked for death.
W3.
I hate this class. I just said them.
Devouring darkness.
Okay. Markers go through, everyone else does not.
I strike from everywhere. Shredded. You cannot escape my blade. Gutted. Devouring darkness.
Okay. Close goes through, far does not.
I strike from
There's a gate for
everywhere.
far. Keep them up, let's go. Dodge lines, guys, dodge lines. Lines now.
Shadow blade.
Do not let this hit you. Fucking run around permanently if you have to.
We're good.
You're chilling, bro.
Yep, it's feeling amazing right now, by the way.
Executed.
This is a red panda.
Red pandas are so cute.
They're
Okay,
almost
go to your spots, go to your spots. L mages.
Surrender to the night. Gutted.
What the fuck?
Is the 110% thing?
Oh,
Yeah, that's such a good vibe.
Executed.
Everyone chilling?
Yeah.
Get ready for the ending.
Submit to the slaughter.
Submit to the slaughter.
I have a thought in the
night.
Nexus Princess channel.
You're next. Marked for death.
Oh fuck, I fucked it up.
Quick and painless. Void take you. Gutted.
Is that
I
stupid?
It's not stupid. It could be fine. But
Wait, is it stupid or fine?
no, I mean, it's just less
It
spot
makes sense.
healing, but it
Quick
could
and
be
painless.
helping people live.
Yeah.
Like, you'll get less healing on your debuff, but you'll have more health. It'll be better for animation for
I mean,
sure.
the healing's probably more important. We should keep machine gunning, but
I mean, right now,
some of these
our
deaths,
machinery is light.
like people dying to. People are just dying to dots with personals up, you know? Like, that's...
I feel like you also don't want to overpress. Like, I died to just a random suck. I don't really want to press a person there when it's intermission 10 seconds later.
No,
I mean,
never.
that's why I
If you know
died
you're
to as
low,
well.
like,
just respect the...
Didn't we have a healer dead there?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
we did.
Yeah, that's all it is.
If you have the personal to suck,
Yeah.
that
I
ain't
mean,
your problem, pretty much.
It feels weird to die, but like...
Basically,
You
if
die
like an
20
evoker is
seconds
dead, there's gonna be a lot less healing on the sock, like because they are always kind of doing something on the sock. Well, I mean, most of the time, right?
Okay.
I mean, there'll be an engulf.
Can I just get clarification real quick? If we have the second line and we're going through, where exactly do you want us to stand? Like, how far from the... how far through the boss should we be going?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
As long as you get through.
Okay.
You have to get behind the other one, though.
You might even be able to get uptime as melee, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was asking.
It depends if there's a clone on the other side. You have to get through them, or else you're going to get hit
Yeah,
by
there's
two.
correct. There will always be two opposed. There's 3 that are going through on the second set. One of them will never have a partner, and that one you can get melee uptime if you want.
Yeah, that one you can just stand on the other side of the boss and you're chilling.
That sounds good.
Yeah, Kingfly, I'm not super worried about that because I think to let everything come back up, we could just use a set of externals on that set.
Yeah.
Like literally external all 5 people.
I mean, I'm using them now, but I think it's just eventually you won't be able to. I think.
Without, it's just sketchy.
No goop, no.
Oh, yeah.
Marked for death.
Could we play 2 Holy Priests and get another symbol?
I mean, Holy Priest would definitely be good spot healing as well.
I don't know. This class is not fun to play on this boss. I'll tell you that much.
I don't think we'll know that, Kingfly, as long as people... Oh, sorry, markers go through, everyone else does not. I think we won't know until, like, we actually...
No, yeah, it's like an eventual thing, I think.
Yeah.
You cannot escape my blade.
Okay. Lines. Orbs.
Got it.
How do we have... Were those lines?
That wasn't in these.
They go further than it
The
looks like.
visual ended, and people didn't realize, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
At least wherever Goop died, and the people under him.
Yep, we were on the same spot, like 10 yards ahead of the line.
Keep them up.
You cannot escape my blade.
Lines.
Getting impact, we got fucking men over there. Someone's shooting it straight for the middle.
Devouring darkness.
Get your spots.
Surrender to the night.
Going pretty well so far. All right, now everyone's going to get one here, and if you have one right now, you're going to get one shortly after. Use something huge.
Got it.
It's right here.
Submit.
Good luck.
Boom.
I think with the whole raid, that spreads out enough for your life, I think. We've done it before, so. I think we should just die with
yeah,
goals. I don't know really how. Just stack up with these on the bus.
Next.
Actually, just for fun, can one person stand out and actually do this suck? One of the tanks? And oh, that's not fun.
Oh.
We move the orbs out.
Nothing personal, just business.
Can everyone look in the Kaivezo channel and see like how the daggers work because they go way further than the visual?
Where is it? In the Kaivezo?
Telegon.
Oh
Telegon's
yeah,
like
look
2
at the
clips.
Telegon, the Tele-G clip.
if you're standing in the lineup on, you just get out.
Oh, that's a fucking terrible visual.
That's good.
I'm gonna link them that. That's insane.
I mean, I linked this exact same thing last night too.
Is that the one?
I didn't see them.
Is that the current line right now?
That's the one in melee, and they have to move out of it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. That listen-in was brought to you by Monster Energy, currently progging on Mythic Princess Kaivezo. Dratnos, they're working through a couple tough things here.
Yeah, so it looks like the problem here is that when the boss is shooting out those daggers, if you have some images that are really far away from where your raid is, the animation of that dagger throw stops, but the daggers keep going past where it looks like they... So you actually can get hit by them even if it doesn't look like you're standing in it because there's an image really far away.
That's gross.
That is still shooting in your direction. So that is
like,
that killed 4 of them on that bull, and it's something that they need to be aware of if they continue to plan to place these images as far away as they are. That is going to be something that could keep happening.
And it really oversight almost.
It does
Perhaps.
seem a little weird.
There's been a number of like Pierce mechanics which keep on going at Infinium.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the worst of them that they have to contend with now because there's so many advantages to having these images very far away in the group. And so now, especially with all the visual clutter on the encounter, lots of purple all over the place, people got to be looking like way down at the edge of the room, basically, to be watching for these mechanics. They might even be like watching for some safe spots or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Sort of figure out what might be easiest.
The other option is to adjust the strategy a little bit to be kind of worse at some of the other stuff, but keep the images a little bit closer so that you're not going to have any of them shooting through the middle of the room without at least the visual indicator there too. So that might be something we see them adjust as well.
This is really one of the disadvantages, I think, of being ahead in some cases. When we don't know if this is going to get replaced, we don't know if it's going to get edited, fixed, whatever. But either way, now it's on Liquid to quickly figure out a strat to be able to deal with this.
With how fast this pull timer came out, I think they're just going to keep trying. Like, I don't think that they've adjusted who's going to stand or how far they're going to dash these images or anything.
Yeah.
I think instead what they're going to do now is now they've kind of identified, they've put it in their channel. You know, they've got a graphic representation of what it looks like, and so hopefully that means that they can be aware of it, and maybe just by being aware of it, that's enough for them to be able to dodge it. Here we'll be able to see it coming out kind of soon-ish, exactly what we're talking about. So here comes that grip in, and we're gonna have daggers soon. Now these daggers, all of them are pretty near the right spot, so should be, actually it's Massacre first. So yeah, this will be the dash through. And the reason those images have to go so far is that when you're doing that dash through, you have to get on the other side of the opposite image so you don't get hit by two of them. And then, yeah, those are the daggers. And basically, if you're far enough away from the image, you'll be over the end of it, but it'll still hit you. Over the end of where the graphic ends.
Yes, they have a very narrow sort of corridor that they could safely stand in, and the positioning makes such a massive difference on the encounter since you do have to have kind of like two different waves, really, for these Massacre lines to run through the boss, adjust your positioning, get back into melee as fast as you possibly can. So especially when you have some of the players who are trying to run out some of their own projectiles, they have so much to watch out for because it's not only going to be other players' projectiles, but also those lines.
Yeah, looks like this one was also not so bad. All of these images nice and close, so they were all in the safe side there. We've had a death and a res and then another death, but we are making it to the intermission with 19 players alive now. That's pretty good. The boss's health here, 76%. So one thing that we're a little bit worried about eventually is that we're lusting on pull, and so we probably need this boss to be below, say, 66% coming out of this first intermission to be on pace, which is not happening this pull, but again, optimizing damage can come later.
It will, and you can also see on some of the different POVs, kind of comparing something like Boomy and Fired Up, how they position along this intermission phase so that they're avoiding a lot of these blaze lines is going to be enormously important because the extra damage everybody is taking is going to be absurd, really, for 24-second intermission phase. You can see they basically chained their rewinds back to back. They'd already used him as well. They pretty much were stacking all of these raid cooldowns together to make sure they were able to smoothly get through that phase. And even with all these cooldowns, this overwhelming amount of healing, those lines do so much damage. They quickly kill players off.
All right.
And yeah, you're seeing more of the projectiles going through players. And
yeah, still though, this is approaching progression percentage here for Liquid. That was definitely another one of those pulls that was promising. And the good news as well was that they were able to avoid, it looked like, any of the deaths to daggers going farther than they look. Maybe it's not even necessarily farther than they look, it's like that very end tip of the animation where it gets nice and narrow and kind of hard to see.
Yes, I think that's part of what it is. It's that not piercing through to the end of the room. It's just it's continuing to narrow, and we have so much clutter on the screen. You have to make sure you're able to sort of parse through it and plan around it. Thankfully, they have some beasts of computers.
Absolutely, these Alienware's more than powerful enough to handle that and anything else you might throw at them.
And we're seeing the consistency come through as well. I mean, each pull that they do, they get a little bit further, they get a little bit cleaner. And we're just cruising along here.
Yeah, we are. I mean, that's about all you can do at this point is make sure that every pull is going to be a little bit cleaner in terms of just avoiding a lot of these deaths, figuring out what caused the deaths to happen from the very beginning, and then seeing how best you can sort of avoid them the next time. Here you can see the first round, or I guess it's the second round of Massacre lines after the intermission phase going out, and yeah, seeing some of the orbs and projectiles.
Yeah, this is the way that fight ended, and some of the positioning there was not what it was supposed to look like, perhaps just because so many people were dead. And yeah, the rifts.
Yeah, the rifts as well.
Not, you know, that when the images go in the wrong places, that's going to mean the rifts go in the wrong places as well. Impact there, looking at what got him, was just the little bit of a ticking dot, and then that Twilight Massacre dash took him out for the old 5 mil.
7. Oh, 5. That says 5.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. A lot more health this time around than in previous tiers, but it's still quite a lot of damage. That was how that pull ended. Scott here rezzed back up.
Very full bags as well.
Yeah, bags are in a bit of a state.
Looks like mine.
Should sort them at least. Yeah, they look like mine too.
A lot of 558s in there. What are I guess maybe that's PvP. Maybe he's got his PvP set in there with the honor gear. That could make sense.
Surely he's not going to need that again.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you never know when a skirmish is going to break out.
Do you think we'll ever get an armor bag versus just an inventory bag? That would be nice. Separate them.
I would feel that too.
You would
that's the problem. Is you give me 30 extra bag spots. I put 30 more things in them, and all of a sudden it's full again.
Yeah.
How many lanes does California have on the highways? Like 8? Doesn't matter. They're full anyway.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
That's
same problem.
I mean, you can see he's got key fragments in there. I think that was a Dragonflight Obsidian Citadel. He's got a Sniffin' Seeking map.
Oh, love those.
I don't think we need all this going into this expansion, but yeah, you give us more bag spaces, it's just going to be filled with more garbage like that for sure.
He's just like me for real.
It'd be nice if it said at least, because like when I go to clean out my bags, sometimes I don't know where things are from, like what expansion.
Yeah.
Yep.
I clean them out in Dragonlands and or Dragonflight, and I found one from WoD. I found an item in there from WoD. I'm not even joking.
For a while, I still have my physical Hearthstone items.
I still have those. I don't. I feel weird.
Oh yeah, I always delete my Hearthstone so that I can have the one extra bag space I need it.
Yeah.
Then use the toys to hearth back to places.
Yeah. Should do that.
We have an insane amount of portals in this expansion too. Getting 10s completed for your dungeons, account-wide.
Oh yeah, you guys have been getting your portals? I've been...
Not me, no.
I've been having this weird bug where I do the 10 and then I only get 5 crests at the end and I don't get a portal.
I have 2 portals. I'll heal you sometime.
I have a Necrotic Wake portal and a Mist portal, but not from... Actually, I would have the I've timed to 10 Mist, but not a Necrotic Wake. All right, we're underway though. Another pull. Getting started here. We have Nick's POV on that Prez Evoker. Casting. So, Jack, what's the lore on this? I've heard that Prez Evoker is not just doing good healing because it's good, but also there's something with Chrono Flames hitting more healing than supposed to in Raid. Is that real lore or is that fake news?
So Chrono Warden Evoker previously had that bug going into the new expansion where they had a few different buffs. One of them is called After Image.
Okay.
Where basically you would have additional living flames hitting your target. And this is something that was fixed. Basically, you have a Call of Ysera was one of your buffs, and the extra after images would get buffed. That stuff has all been fixed. It's all resolved. What they're doing is they're running Flame Shaper Evoker, which uses this Engulf ability. It's the only active ability that's added to Preservation Evoker. And what it does is it extends the duration of your Dream Breath, and then also consumes part of the duration to detonate for a big burst of healing on
so there's not like any buggy-wuggy stuff or any uncapped healing that shouldn't be happening or anything like that? Like this is just the spec is this good?
There was an assumption that it was, but it turns out this is actually just how Preservation is tuned. This is working as intended, that it does so much more healing than everybody else.
Okay, yeah, interesting. How much of their healing is based on the amount of incoming damage? I know Rewind, right, scales with the incoming damage. Is there also, I know there was that Golden Hour effect. Is that still being run as well, that scales with the incoming damage being taken?
No, Nick was making really good use out of Golden Hour on a Brute Twister Ovanax. He was really using that heavily for a lot of tank support and tank
That makes
healing.
sense.
On this encounter, Golden Hour is really absurd for healing Brewmaster monks. It's one of the most potent things you can do to help a Brewmaster monk is give them lots of direct reversion healing. He's been using it a little bit here. It's always something that's good, but he's not making it a primary focus thus far. He's really been trying to make sure he's echoing a lot of his Engulf casts to trigger additional detonations.
So more raid healing rather than tank healing. Which makes sense because Brood Twister was such a tank healing intensive encounter.
Spot on.
But yeah, then that means that the HPS numbers we're seeing here are just... not a lot of that is just because it's scaling with huge incoming damage, right? It's just like, oh yeah, this spec just does that much healing.
Right, it is just intended to be doing that healing. And so what Nick's able to take advantage of is when these rifts are coalescing, they are also pulsing damage depending on how many rifts are out. And so what you can see is the big chunk of health pools bursting up each time. Each of those is one of the Engulf casts that you're going to see. And so all these Preservation Evokers are just rotating between whose turn it is to be casting those Engulfs and blasting up health pools incredibly fast. Every time you see 5, 6, 7, 8 players pushing up a health pool quick, that is almost certainly going to be the Preservation of Ogres. Rewinds, like you mentioned, capturing some of the damage that was taken previously, are predominantly used in the intermission.
The intermissions, that makes sense.
Since players are going to be so spread out. And so since the 24-second intermission phase is going out, you can take about 5 or 8 seconds of damage from that intermission, hit rewind, you're good for the next 4 or 5 seconds. By the time that ends, you hit the next rewind, you're good for the next 5 or 6 seconds.
And we are now hitting Prague. This is our best pull, 62%, and dropping. Not a lot of players alive, but very, very solid progress right now.
Absolutely, yeah. We had a lot of players live for quite a lot of this pull, although we have some Rift issues here. Fired up, able to manage to get to a spot where he's not actually getting killed by that Rift. Has to run against it, though, once he gets into that middle bit. And we're into the second intermission now. 4 players alive, so there's going to be an awful lot of blazes targeting these people. As soon as more die, we're going to see even more. Yeah, now you can see Dryny gets the old triple.
I hate it when I get triple debuffs.
Yep, now Nick trying to live here. Triple could be a renewing blaze opportunity.
That you're correct. Oh, actually, that's another.
That does scale with incoming damage as well, yeah.
It does, and with Flame Shaper Evoker,
you put it on somebody else.
Half strength one, that's right.
That's pretty good. That's another potentially really good thing for the tanks, huh?
It is. It's insane, again, for Brewmaster monks.
Yeah, Brewmaster, pretty good this tier. Here's a little bit of a replay, though, as we crossed over that progression threshold. Not a lot of the raid was left alive at this point, but they were able to keep doing the mechanics as needed and able to get those masks charged to the boss. That 2-stack of that Death Cloak debuff, indicating that the mechanic has been done properly in Phase 2. Need that on both of the charge sets, exactly 2.
Yeah, this is such a difficult rift to survive as well.
Yeah, so what maybe needed to happen here was the tanks taunting the boss and running it over back behind to the right, but fortunately we had so many players dead already. A little bit of a disastrous end to the pull, but a good Phase 1. Immediately, you can see just at the end of that replay, Scott scrolling down the damage meter, immediately looking at his own damage, getting ready to try and figure out how to optimize a little bit more. One thing that I saw him do about 30 minutes ago was swap over to a different hero talent build, actually. Swapped over to the Lunar Bear off of the Druid of the Claw that he'd been doing a little bit before. So maybe a little bit of a concession to more survivability and less single target. That Druid of the Claw with that cat weaving, you do a lot of single target damage as a Guardian Druid playing that, but I think he maybe has felt like, okay, this isn't really a fight where I can get away with going in cat form too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting to see that comparison going on right now because everybody has different things and different pieces that they have to learn bit by bit. And so once you kind of feel like you've learned your job in terms of doing the mechanics, then it's on how do I optimize my damage while still doing those mechanics. And it kind of like it's very imbalanced as to who's working on which of those pieces first, but everyone is kind of going through that process at their own pace.
Yeah, even still, he's adjusting his talent build from pull to pull here, so something we see him do quite a lot, actually, is pop open that talent window and make some adjustments. No Innervate being taken on this fight either, which is, I think, one of the things, particularly for Liquid, they have so many of that necklace out that is going to give the healers mana back. Makes it a little bit easier. This tier has felt pretty nasty for healer mana bars, except for those Holy Paladins.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, but with enough people wearing that Sareki Zealot's insignia, I think it gets a lot nicer. And that's one of the benefits of doing 20 million splits, is that everybody has a Sareki Zealot's insignia.
Very true. That neck is not only giving the healers mana, but it's also giving some versatility to the healers and for the DPS players. So it's a really big benefit. I love how they make sure that something that benefits healers also benefits the DPS, so people actually run it. Love to be able to see that. And as you mentioned, mana for most of the healers is not going to be too bad. Of course, Preservation of Ogres can kind of light their mana bar on fire by casting lots of extra echoes and temporal anomalies to cast more echoes onto their allies, which can consume a lot of mana.
Okay, so echo's bad is what you're saying there for the... Gotta be careful. Is that the claim you're making here?
Echo pricey.
I see.
Very pricey. Strong, but pricey. What can I say? The other thing is, as you mentioned with Holy Paladins, since they're running Beacon of Faith, their mana should be incredibly good. It should be immaculate.
Are they using the suck to get into position sooner?
Yeah,
and timing it for when it falls off? Good lord.
It kind of needs to be done for that on that first cast, because otherwise you're shooting out those orbs in the middle of the raid, and that's just a catastrophe.
It makes sense. I just saw what it looked like.
It looks scarier than it is. It's one of those things. It's like bees, right? They're more scared of you than you are of them.
Right. Yeah.
That's this fight too.
The fight is like bees.
Some of the players are too.
There's another one of those dashes
Wait,
coming.
the players are scared of us?
I think so.
What?
At least me. Maybe not you guys.
Okay. Scatter. His eye is here.
I don't know. I say hello very loudly sometimes. Yeah. And they're just like, they're like locked in. I'm like, hi, good morning. And I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta leave them alone.
It might be that we're getting up earlier than them.
That could be as well.
We already got our mom.
I will say,
no, that's probably exactly it.
As a night owl, morning people do scare me, just kind of on a fundamental level. You know, like, what you guys even need to be doing at 7 a.m. that justifies getting up?
Are you happy about this?
Try 6.
Oh, wow, that's
right.
I mean, I'm often awake at 6 a.m. for the other reason.
Yeah.
Bedtime.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, we had Impact getting taken out there by one of those slices. Ankh is available here as we get into that second phase. Yeah, that Eclipse damage really fast on this. You can see you only get like 2 seconds to get out of that slice while also needing to make sure that you don't cleave anybody with your Blaze line. So that intermission was a little bit ugly. Claimed a lot of lives. There is a little bit of a domino effect in the intermission as well, where the total number of Blaze lines remains constant even as players die, which means the amount per player goes up as people die.
Yep, and with that Reaper mechanic killing players below 10% health, the margin of error has gotten even lower, especially when, again, players around 620 or so for the entire raid, with a potential cap of 639. So there's a lot of eye level for them to go, and they just have to deal. You know, they have very little breathing room, both from a defensive point of view and a healing point of view.
The gearing ramp this tier is going to be very long, so if you're a guild that is, if you're in a cutting edge guild that's planning to fight this boss in a few weeks' time, you're definitely going to have a lot more item levels than Liquid, and you're still going to be gaining item levels every week. That was something that kind of wasn't true in Dragonflight as much. Was if you go back to Aberrus, you were pretty much in full gear on the 3rd or 4th week. Even if you weren't running splits, you could get there. You could get there just because the upgrade system was as powerful as it was. But with the addition of the myth track and then the elongation of the myth track, we are now looking at a time to being fully BIS of several months rather than a few weeks of resets. And that does mean that this is going to be sort of automatically nerfed for later guilds a little bit more. Plus, there is going to be a stacking raid buff that starts in about a month or so, which is going to add some health and damage to everybody over time as long as you're collecting these scraps of thread from the raid once that comes out. So that is a pretty encouraging sign. I think this fight in particular and Overnax are both going to get a lot easier once that buff is there. Although I am a little bit worried that with how easy the first 4 bosses are, there are maybe going to be a lot of guilds bashing their heads against some pretty unkillable versions of these bosses for themselves for the next few weeks. So I know, you and I, for instance, are both on Overnax, right? And the odds of that thing dying, even as we're still below 620, right? Like next week we might be 620. That's going to be tough, so.
It will.
Have fun with that.
It is, it's a, hey,
blessed.
Difficult mythic progression is a fun thing to do.
I think it's going to be good, though, that there is going to be more of a marathon.
Yeah.
Because I think in a lot of cases, guilds are looking at like the world first raiders and they're like, oh, like it's going to get nerfed, it's going to be fine, it's going to be whatever. And people are always expecting to see like lots of big direct nerfs to big mechanics. And when we were progging on Tindril, there was a lot of this mindset of like, oh, phase 1's so difficult, it's going to get nerfed, it's going to get nerfed. I think it barely got touched. And really some of the nerfs coming in were phase 2, phase 3. And so when you had these moments where the mindset of the team is things are going to get nerfed, there's sort of this complacency that kind of gets into everybody's brain of like, oh yeah, it's going to get nerfed, don't worry, we just kind of sit around and pull the boss and wait. But I think people are going to be in for a pretty rude awakening if there is that expectation, because there's more natural nerfs with the increased eye level coming around and the strands of fate, whatever buff that's going to be reducing, or that's going to be increasing player power throughout the rest of the season. I think those things are fantastic.
Do we think this boss gets nerfed? I've heard it kind of thrown around. It's probably too early to tell.
I don't think
the final phase that would be nerfed if it were to be nerfed, and we don't really know what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't think this is getting nerfed for world first progression. I wouldn't be surprised if Overnax gets nerfed on the reset.
Yeah.
Particularly because so much of Overnax's difficulty is like murdering your tanks if you're not playing 3 of them or 2 blood DKs. And there are a lot of guilds out there that aren't going to be playing 3 of them or 2 blood DKs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that boss in particular getting nerfed, maybe on the reset, not for the world first race.
Right.
For the race to world first, I actually think that the Nexus Princess looks really good. And that one probably doesn't need to get nerfed even afterwards, because it's just one of those DPS checks that you get a little better at every week as you get more gear. Maybe some of it, like maybe it's a little bit more lethal than it needs to be long term, but at least short and medium term, I think Nexus Princess. The only reason I would ever expect that boss to get nerfed for World First Race is if we see them reaching that Enrage on a good pull with like 15% health left on the boss.
Which
if that sort of thing
done
is
that
happening,
anyways and still
but like on a good pull with optimized damage, right? Like
right.
if we optimize the damage, things are still looking good, and we have like double-digit percentage still on the boss. Like okay, sure. But if it's like 5% or something, like they'll figure that out for sure. And
remember,
there are options as well. One of the things that I love seeing Liquid do is you have this fight, it looks really brutal. How are you going to live this? And then the answer is you can, and also you have to drop a healer.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, will be interesting to see, because remember Kura Grim Totem? How they would sort of optimize the movement on that encounter to even get like a bit of extra damage as the boss is flying to the middle of the room before he went immune. They had gotten it to the point where the boss was like still 5-10%, and they had actually made some nerfs mid-progression for the World First teams after they had done all the mechanics, after they had gotten to the end of the encounter, and were still wanting for more damage. So I don't think they were anywhere close to having nerfs until Liquid, or if Echo catches up, are going to be getting to that point. It's still a long way to go.
Right, exactly. And it's not, we haven't been seeing them wiping to any mechanics where it's like this thing needs some nerfs or anything like that. Like, no, they have been getting to that intermission with 18, 19 people alive. So what we're expecting to see over the next few hours is that consistency is going to go up. We're going to start seeing more pulls where you make it to the intermission with 20 people alive. Then we need to start seeing some pulls where we get out of the intermission with 20 people alive. But once that happens even a few times, the beauty of this fight and of their strategy is that you just repeat that and it continues to work. The exact same strategy works in Phase 2 as did in Phase 1, and it'll also mostly work in Phase 3. Phase 3 throws a little bit of a wrinkle where you have to dash the 3 masks through at the end, so that's going to be a new challenge for them to deal with, but it's mostly the same thing. So once you can do it with 20 people living consistently, we're going to be just having the Enrage to deal with.
Yeah, so we'll expect to see some heavy progression once we've got that nailed down.
We will. And now they've taken a break, and it makes me wonder, since we're not hip deep in the encounter, we're still fighting through some of the earlier phases, it makes me wonder, are they going to make any sort of compositional differences? Because I don't think you'd really want to be doing it, especially changing around some classes that may not have as much mobility, when you're deep in progression and they have to figure out, how do I get out of this mechanic? How do I deal with that mechanic? Do you think there's going to be any compositional differences in the next hour or so, Drados?
So you've seen the people that aren't in are running M+. That's something that is going on. But I don't know what exactly you'd even want to add to this fight. All of the classes they have in, the classes they're stacking, right, are Arms Warriors, Arcane Mages, Enhancement Shamans, and BM Hunters, right? Those are the ones that we have multiple of, besides, of course, the Prez Evoker as well, but that's a healer thing. Don't really think about that too much.
I was about to say that.
Also, you know, the Prez Evokers seem like a bit of a no-brainer at this point with how absurd, like, look at that healing meter, right? It's okay, interesting. But could you change around which of these you're stacking? Like, could you say drop Arms Warrior for another BM Hunter? Maybe. Arms Warrior is going to really start pumping once we get to that Execute, though, as well. So even if you don't always see a bunch of them at the top of the damage meters, that's probably going to be really valuable at the end of the fight.
Also, something interesting to note, Echo just got a 2.03% pull on Mythic Omen.
They are getting close.
7:30 p.m. in Sweden where they're rating, so I don't know when they stop, but they're nearing the end of the night.
It's got to be 7 p.m. Yeah, like you said, 7:30 p.m. even.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, they have a little bit of an earlier start and end typically than Liquid do because their server reset is 5 a.m. local time.
Oh, so they're ending the night even earlier, you think?
Well, that's on the Wednesday when their servers come up.
I got you. Okay.
They don't always wake up at 5 a.m., but they need to keep their sleep schedule such that they can wake up at 5 a.m. on the second reset.
Makes sense.
So they have to be playing a little bit closer to the earlier start and earlier end. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they push it until, say, 10 or 11 p.m. local time today.
They'll probably go once it's dead.
I suspect they'll be able to get that kill in the next few hours. If they don't get the kill today, that's catastrophic.
That would be really bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, interesting to note too. It was at 7 local time that they got their 9% pull.
I believe so.
They took. I'm doing math.
We started our day about 3 or 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
3 hours ago. And we had already seen like a 5% wipe. So they have been knocking 5%. On the door, really, of being able to kill this boss at least for 3 or 4 hours, if not more. And so the pressure really is on them to make sure they get the kill. I don't think it's overwhelming pressure. I don't think there's any tilt or frustration or anything like that.
No, they look
But there's certainly this mindset that you want to make sure you're keeping pace with everybody and not having to hit that point where you have to play catch up or wake up earlier to make up for lost time.
Well, in the meantime, we do have some transmogs submitted by the community here. You can see it on the left-hand side of your screen, right above that Coinbase logo. Here's the first one. Cleavage.
I believe that's pronounced cleavage.
Ah, my bad. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Pinky up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very fancy. This is
sick.
Good looking.
I
don't
love
know.
this.
See, here's the thing. I don't know if these are one sets or not. So.
Well, he has the Tusken Manor off.
Yeah, those were a lot easier to obtain during MOP Remix, so we've got a lot of warriors rocking those things now, and it does look really good.
Yeah.
We've got a warrior in my guild rocking that kind of Garrosh RP look, and we've been calling this guy Garrosh and made him macro in for the Horde on his rally.
I love it.
Yeah.
The Horde
RP.
shield, if I'm not mistaken, is from one of the trading posts.
Yeah, it's a
Couple months
beautiful
old.
looking. I mean, this entire set looks really good there. A little bit more maybe Grommash-y than Garrosh-y, but very good.
Well, let's give it a rating.
9.
9?
Yep.
Dratnos?
Yeah, 8.7.
Okay, I'll go 9 as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Cleavage, for your submission. Let's check out the next one. Okay, Zanik.
Ooh, I like the little bit of like kind of Zareth Mortis-y vibe going on here.
Me too.
Some Shadowlands kind of aesthetic.
Very cool.
Yeah, a little bit off the beaten path of Mogs we've seen.
Is it a Nightborn? I can't see from here.
Void
no, I
Elf.
don't think it's standing like a... Yeah, okay. Something
Void Elf
blue.
DK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decent bit of Sindori themes going on to it.
Yeah.
A little heritage.